shortly after, because Manny called me, I think we spoke over the phone or something, and I was like telling Derek, yeah, Manny doesn't seem to be wanting to come to the party at the hotel, so I'm just gonna ask for a refund, and for his ticket, and maybe you and I can we'll be on our own. I was excited because it's so hard to have some time alone with him. It seems like everything, he was spread very thin with his time. Yeah, so it is in that moment that Derek told me that, one of his friends invited him to his home for the New Year's celebration. And it's then that I started paying attention to him, right? Because instead of just approaching me and talking to me, and exposing that, and so we can collaborate and go to his and express what he wanted. Instead, he went to his friend Manny, and they plotted all of this and just to get me to go to his friend's house. I was like, but I stayed quiet. I was like, yeah, it exposing he as well did not trust me. It's like we were triggering each other. And because he never spoke, he doesn't speak truth, he just hides and he shuts down, and for me, I've seen this since we were 15. It's like he reminded me of myself, because if I shut down, there's nothing to do. You just have to give me my space. And when I observe trust and safety, I naturally open up. So I was doing the same to him. I would stay quiet, and I'm like, okay, sure, we can go to your friend's place, So it is in that moment we went to his friend's place, and I saw, the people they reminded me of Victor, yeah, and they knew Victor, all of them. So I asked, and when we were sitting, I asked them, how do you guys know each other? That's when the friends, revealed their energy, these men. And I understood that Derek was just clinging on to them because of this superficiality, of this illusion of power and superiority, and to matter, to be in a class that, socio-economic class that gives the illusion of success, basically, But these people were they were surrounded by so much fear. It's like the one, even there was one of them who could not even sleep, and he was expressing that. I could see why he could not sleep. I see it. I'm like, yeah, when you invest and you contribute in certain energies, there's a price that comes with it, and you have to be able to transmute it, or it takes everything out of you. Even with Derek, at a point I realized that he had issues with his lung. He had pus, and energetically, anything that has to do with respiration is your soul trying to escape. You are facing some very deep, you've been participating in some deep fears, and it expresses in the body with anything related to respiration. And I observed that in my brother, because my brother, older brother Rogelio, suffered a lot from asthma very badly, to the point that sometimes he had to get inhalers and he couldn't keep up. And so when Derek shared this with me, it's then that I observed that, just like me, he's been suffocated by his environment, because that's what it is. If you have issues with your respiratory system, energetically, that's what it means. You don't want to be around, you are discouraged, you are inspired by your environment. For me, that suffocation was expressed in how John climaxed, right? In order for John to climax when we were intimate, he will suffocate me. That was his highest climax, you know. He will he will be on top and make sure that I could not breathe, and that's the only way he will come really hard. Yeah, so in my reality, this is how that suffocation was manifested. So I observed Derek and I saw, I understood what he was going through because I went through the same thing. But every time I try to talk about anything, he would just shut down, you know. So after that December, we spent time, I came back and I was like, I told him, and even in December, that's when the insight, I had to let him go, right? Because I saw this guy is not capable of telling me the truth, you know. He's not capable of speaking about what he wants, you know. He was hiding, he was surrounded by a lot of fear, you know. So how is it that I can even, because I saw that there were things I need to deal with internally, because he exposed a lot of stuff. I would just keep reacting and shut it down and reject him, and I saw the type of damage he was doing for him, because he even expressed it. He was like, this is too much for me, you know. So after that December, I was like, our time in December, I was like, I was given the insight that it was time to let him go, and I couldn't do it. I had a panic attack right in front of him. He saw me. It's like I couldn't hold it in. I couldn't hide it anymore. The emotions were too intense. They took over, and I expressed to him I didn't know how to let him go, because the next stage I have to go through it alone. Yeah, when you start developing this connection with your heart, like the messages become louder, because I finally let go of John. So there was a huge space that was being made within myself, right? So I expressed to him that I needed to do this alone. So when I get back, I would just delete my WhatsApp account. I will not talk to him. I will erase everything, and I don't want him to contact me. You see, I was abandoning him again. I was rejecting him, and he would just be like, okay, yeah. So I came back. I deleted my account of WhatsApp. I said goodbye to him, and it took only an hour. I couldn't. It was like I didn't even know this woman I was, because no man, and I would go into my dating with men, how that, no man ever has seen me in this position. No man, except Derek, you know. So after an hour, I reset a new WhatsApp account. I re-downloaded at WhatsApp and I called him back. I was like, I cannot do it. So we need to figure out another way, you know. And he that's when he would say, okay, and I started seeing that him as well was starting to get very destabilized by this thing between us. Somehow he as well didn't see this coming, and then he will express certain things, he will explode, because at that point I started wanting answers. I'm like, what is going on, with your girlfriend? What is happening there? I went in and committed to a relationship with him, under the understanding that him and his girlfriend were separating, right? Because that's the understanding I had on my end. And I separated from John, so I no longer needed to betray or cheat on anybody, because if I'm going into this and was honest, now that I was out of my marriage, to continue to participate in this will only mean that I am committing to karma, You see, this is how you collect karma. You know, you're not standing in your truth, right? You're concealing. So Mother Nature will redirect things so you can learn that lesson. So I started asking questions to Derek. What, you know, I told him straightforward, you know, you and your girlfriend seem like everything is going right, you know. I don't know why you're doing this with me, and you know, this is what's creating a discord in me, you know. You seem happy, you everything seems to be working out for you, so you know, why are you here? And I would say this to him, and he's like, you know, you will understand later. Yeah, that really made me pause, you know, because it's like, what does that even mean? You know, I want to give people space to express themselves when the time is right. But at this point, I was being put in a position where my worth was undermined. I was not respected, you know, I was not being honored. Um, yeah, so he started avoiding me. We start talking, you know, and even before, you know, I used to send him pictures of my body part, and he used to create, he used to trigger me, right? Because he reminded me of that email he sent about even the contrast. Every time he talked about my, you know, the contrast between my skin and his skin, it's like it triggered the email he sent to all his friends with his hand on some girl's ass, describing all this stuff. So for me, I was just getting triggered. It was like, it's getting so loud, and I was just like, he disappeared. I would change my number, I would react, I would shut down, you know, and every time when I come back, he would just be like, okay. As if, you know, he has been there, he has tried to reject me in every way possible, and you know, he just couldn't find anyone like me, you know. So he was willing to go through whatever he has to go, but he was setting up boundaries where he stopped talking to me, because when he talked, I listened, you know. I learned to do that through him. I listened, and he said a lot of things, you know. At times he will explode, and he will be like, do you want me to abandon my kids and another man is gonna raise my son? You say that. And I was like, yeah, I get that, because I've been there, you know, sticking in my marriage all these years, mostly because I didn't want my daughter, you know, to face her dad killing himself, right? That's the trauma. So for him, his parents were divorced. So it's like, you know, for him, he views it as another man raising. There's a trauma there. So I understood. And then as I was navigating my divorce, you know, I expressed, I just talked to him. I hid nothing. I was like, yeah, I'm not taking child support, but I didn't, he didn't know what I had endured with John, because I didn't share it with anybody. Because if I do share it, most people will want to condemn John, you know, and I didn't want that, because I was very protective of my ex-husband. You see, you are protective. This protection was me just holding on to the control and enabling it. You know, we talk, and again, this is this superficial loyalty of how you stand there for family, but at the end of the day, you know, you're just enabling them if you don't know how to set boundaries, you know. And as I expressed these things to Derek, he would tell me, you know, I am not taking care of anybody. And I'll be like, do you think I need you to take care of me? You don't think I can manage without you? And he'll be like, yeah, I think you can, you know. But he was getting scared. This was fear. You see, he has surrounded himself with the type of women who depended on him. You know, he was, again, you're only talking about your mom, right? Yeah, so that put a lot of pressure on him. And I could understand that because I watched my dad, all his family depended on him, and me too. Yeah, I paid, I had my whole family, it's like they became dependent on me. I used to send money to my dad, I used to send money to my siblings and my brother. It becomes exhausting. It's like you become drained, it's like they cling on. It's like that energy of lack that he was, because he started seeing for him too, it made no sense. How am I going to fend for myself? you know and I think these are the type of conversation we should have had before we decided even to have a baby together. You see, these are the moments where you have to start paying attention. So he expressed a lot, um, a lot of things, and I listened and I understood. I was like, yeah, I know how that feels like. And this man, you see, he said this to me, and this is what John used to do as well. Because at a point, Derek even told me, you don't let anybody help you. You see, just like my dad, you see, because my dad used every time he's there for you is a way of him to dominate you. And there were arguments between him and my mom where my mom would like ask him for allowance so she can buy herself perfume, and my dad would be like, you got your allowance, how did you spend it, why do you need more perfume? And I will expand on that later. You see, so I saw the dependency of my mom when it came to my dad. He held every finance, he controlled everything. She couldn't go anywhere on her own, right? So that forged me. It's not, if I can do something on my own, I do it. I don't depend on anybody. But when I need help, I ask for help. I like collaboration. So Derek also will say these things to me. You do not need anybody. And he said this to me because I decided to visit him in France after we spent time in December. I decided to visit him for just a couple of days. I missed him enormously, and I was like, it's time for us to talk. Okay, I wanted to talk. I wanted to know what was happening. What is it that he wants, and I wanted to express what it is that I want and what I have been through. So it is then when I announced this to him, he was like, that's not a good moment for me. Why are you doing this? Why do you have to get to see me now? I was like, because I miss you. But it's okay if you don't wanna see me, then that's fine. I can go and enjoy myself on my own. That's when he was like, fine, you can come. You let me know if you need me to pick you up at the airport. And I was like, what the fuck? So you will not even pick me up from the airport? And that's when he was like, well, you don't seem like you need anybody's help. You want to do everything on your own. You see, I'm getting condemned for taking action to express my love. I'm being punished, right? And he was like, and I was so perplexed by this, because there was an event when I went to Benin, and my dad could not pick me up, because usually it's my dad who picks me up from the airport. So I reached out to Derek, and I was like, can you please pick me up? I don't have a car, and I don't want to take a cab because it scares me. I don't know where things are. It feels safer to have someone I know. He was like, I cannot come. I'm having dinner with my mom. And I figured it out on my own. So based on this, right, this guy now is telling me that I don't need anybody's help, and I'm being punished. And then after that, I'm being told that he's not financially responsible for me or anybody else. It's like this type of, you see, all that shows is that this person has the inability to be accountable of his own action and to speak truth. So I started paying attention. He stopped even talking to me. He would disappear and then resurface for like just to say hi, and then silence. He will not, sometimes he will, I would send him a message, he will not even respond. He disappeared totally. So that's when I was like, I'm gonna visit you in Paris. And I came for that weekend. He picked me up from the airport, and when we went to our hotel room, uh, the next day, it was basically one day. I came Saturday morning and I was leaving Sunday morning. So that was it, because I had to go back to work and I had to care for my daughter. So as I came, he picked me up from the airport, and we slept together, and he fell asleep. This is how, you see, you have to observe these things. This is how the ego is trying to avoid conversation. And when he woke up, he had to go back to work. We ate lunch together, and when he slept, he woke up in the afternoon, and I was like, so would we have dinner together? And because I had things to share with him. And he was like, no, he's going to work, and maybe he will stop back, but maybe not. He did not. He left. I ate dinner by myself, watch a movie, enjoy myself. And the next day, he didn't, he spent the whole morning away. And when it was time to leave, maybe 5 minutes, I was walking to check myself out of the hotel and take a cab to the airport, when he showed up, and he showed up as I was walking to the desk, and he told me if we can just step in the bedroom for a little bit before. So when we stepped in the bedroom, I saw that all he wanted was to just sleep with me, and that exposed the superficiality that he was expecting from me. He was trying to tame me, to show me who's in control. I stayed quiet, and as we were sleeping together, I couldn't hold anything in anymore. I started crying, and as he saw my tears, he turned me back and finished off, and drove me to the airport. I was so enraged. As soon as I get to the US, I got to New Jersey, I changed my number. I called John, because we were on a family plan on the phone, and I said, change my number. I just want my number changed. And John knew I came from France, so for him, this was already an indication that things were over between me and Derek. And that gave John hope of something happening and being reignited between us. But then, I changed my number, and for 2 weeks, I didn't speak to Derek. And after 2 weeks, it's like, that's what I'm saying. We keep manifesting each other. So I called him, and I was like, I am sorry, and, and he was like, it's okay. So beautiful. So beautiful. He was like, it's okay. But he basically stopped talking to me. And after a while, right, at a point when we were spending time in Benin together, he asked me if he could give my number, like his best friend Manny, because when I went in December, I stopped. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to hang out with anybody. I was in mourning. I just wanted to be with Derek. And even that, he spent all his day outside. He would come in the evening and spend some time with me. And then I saw, this guy doesn't stand still. He cannot face himself. He tries to distract himself as much as possible to avoid facing his heart. So those things were surfacing. And that is when, he brought up if I was I was in touch with Victor. That's when it was him, he brought up Victor. Have you been speaking to him? And I'm like, no, I haven't spoken to Victor, because when I cut things off with Derek at 19, I cut everything off. Not at 19, after I got married, I cut everything off with Derek, right? Because after the event at 19, me and Derek became friends. And even then, when we became friends, I saw that we used to call each other, we used to email each other. And at a point, he decided to forge himself and go to France to study from Benin, as you know. So he set up his own paperwork and figured out his own finances, and just brought himself to France. And one day I called his brother to talk to Derek, and that's when his brother informed me that Derek went to France and he's gonna study over there. And as I have not had any contact with phone number of Derek, I talked to his brother, and that's when his brother exposed that he was having financial issues with his mom while Derek was away. So I started giving them a little bit, I sending him a little bit of money, because I thought that if Derek knew that they were fine, this will be a way for me to support Derek. But I wasn't sure. I felt like I was crossing a line. But for me, my intention was just to support Derek, because I thought his action was the most admirable thing he can do, to just really forge himself, into pushing himself and create his own destiny. That was he was a reflection of me, because I did the same thing, so I really supported that, and I wanted to encourage it. And then I saw his brother's manipulation, and then his brother Manny will step in as well and say that he also needs money, that I should send him money. So at that point, I was like, Derek reached out to me and had a phone number and would call me from parties and celebration with his friends and always hanging out with people. So I was like, I told his brother at that point, I was like, yeah, okay, Derek is established, so I'm gonna bow out. I told Manny, I'm good. I wish him all the best. That's where I got a glimpse of the personality of Derek's brother, Anyway, so all of that for me was getting triggered. It's like, but then when I reconnected with Derek afterwards, right, when we coming back to after the divorce, it is then that he shared his story with me on what he was faced with when he tried to forge himself and he pushed himself to come and live in France, the type of reality he was faced with. And it is that moment, because I used to have a lot of guilt towards sending his brother and his mom some money for that interim. I used to have guilt because I used to tell myself I crossed the boundaries, that I shouldn't have done that. But in Derek sharing his experience, I felt great, because I was like, in knowing what this guy has faced, just to be able to say, I navigate these things intuitively, but because there was doubt present in my relationship with Derek, I didn't know how he would take that action of mine. That's why I bow out as soon as he established himself. But basically, yeah, it came down to the point where it's like I was like, I gave Manny my phone number, right? And at a point also in Benin, Derek had a driver, and offered for me to use his driver when I go to my dad or whatever. And the driver also had my cell phone number, right? And Manny, at a point, I needed another driver to drive me from the airport, because Derek has his driver drive him to the airport in Benin. So Manny's brother also has my number, right? And through Manny, I discovered he was connected to another child classmate of mine. Let's call him. Let's call him. Uh, Tom. Let's call him Tom. Okay. So Tom also had my number. So in that interim, after I was navigating my divorce, Manny reached out to me asking for money because he was building a house. Derek was building a house, so he also was building a house. And he told me he was taking collection from all the friends around him to finish his house. I'm like, okay, you are taking a collection, but why does the house has to be finished now? Because I have expressed to Manny that I was getting divorced, right? I had to, because it's like he was the only one who had access to Derek and I, our relationship. And I will expand on this guy later, because there's a lot of things that expose themselves. Yeah, so he told me that Derek was going to cover a part of it and he was short a certain amount. So because my connection with Derek was very sensitive at that point, and this guy only got my number and got access to me because of my relationship with Derek. And again, that's not necessary. We will expand on that later. So he asked for money, and I was like, fine. I sent him the money, right? And soon after that, his brother reached out to me. The driver, he was a taxi driver. His brother reached out to me and was like, I have a project I want to talk to you about, and in investment. So I was like, interesting, the correlation happened soon after. And then Tom, which I got who got access to me to money, right, also constantly was asking for money. And then the driver introduced to me by Derek, who got also access to my phone number, was asking me to pay the tuition of his daughter in school. And I understood what these people were going through. I saw, because Manny, in watching his best friend build a house, on his salary alone, could not keep up with that, right? So he will latch on to all the people Derek has access to extract based on who he was to Derek, who will extract money from the friends around. I understood all of that. So I was so overwhelmed because after the divorce, I was trying to forge myself, and all these people were coming to me for money, and I was overwhelmed, because again, after I have to explain on that, because even though I was not taking child support and spousal support for the divorce